Da, 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 so it leaves a little bit of a...
And guess what? Different orchestras and different sections have different conceptions about how much
course.
that time and that lift is.
Of course. And I don't mean a space. I just mean
Defocus.
a faster bow speed so that there's air in that.
Yeah.
Just try it with a little bit of faster bow. This is all just a little bit. It's so subtle. This is why this is the hardest excerpt in any audition you'll take. So if you can master this, you're all getting jobs.
All right, one last one with a little defocus, and then I'll try not be so obvious in the end. Even though it's a foreign concept that I think is completely wrong. Never mind. I was going to say, we've discussed this before. I think it is this strange thing acoustically that when a passage has the same rhythmic figure repeated, especially in close proximity, that if it's like a dotted rhythm like this, it's somehow necessary for the little note to be slightly later each time. Slightly later. It's like a little bit the way the Parthenon was constructed. You know, it looks like it's straight up and down, but in fact the proportions are all a little bit. And something like this. That, it might even feel very exaggerated to you, but what Cindy's saying, the number of people doing this together, it very easily can become yada da 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 da.
Exactly, exactly. Great third note, by the way, though. That was really great.
Okay. So see if you can keep it. Always it belongs to the next note. One. First part was good. The last part was good. The middle part where we tried to do a number of those, you thank you very much. You listened to what I had to say, but it was too much. Can we do it one last time and see if you can make that middle part, that idea, but as natural as possible. Then we'll go on to the next.
Can I ask for one more thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Da, 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 da. Not a hurry into that subito piano. So it's just placed with a little bit of poise. Did that work?
Tenuto on the E flat.
No. So there's just a tiny bit of placement, just poise.
First variation.
Oh, wait a minute. Make sure I'm right about this. Yeah, the subito piano. Also, just a little. It was so lovely in that first iteration. The other thing I want to say, and this goes, sorry, but often we don't even get past the first one, is that I see some of you. I see some of you picking up the bow, which is really great. If you stay there, you don't have enough bow to actually make that fortissimo. And just the group effort of picking up your bow and starting at the frog so that you all use the same amount of bow is great for all of you playing together and sounding unified. Someone else want to say something?
Do you mind? The blend you guys had in the theme itself I thought was really great. And somehow in the 16th notes, you just sort of lost that quality of blend. Some of it, I think, is just coming from the intonation. When you're playing both the theme and then this variation, 32nd note variation, I think if you can all agree that the G is your leading tone to the A flat, and tune things sort of accordingly so that your A flat is, that the half step isn't too big, and that things come from that, so your A flat relative to the G, and then the E flat relative to the A flat. All of your perfect intervals are set up, because often you would get to notes and you could just hear the disagreement about it. And then the other thing is, as you're playing through these 16th notes, I think if you can just maintain a more even quality of vibrato, just nothing big, but try to carry it through all of the notes, and that will help it sound like just one nice ribbon of sound through the variation.
Also, remember that as you approach the D flat, as I remember, there is actually no crescendo there, is there?
But it's an up bow. How do you avoid a crescendo?
Well, I mean, so it's perhaps a little too obvious now. Well, are you moving in the right direction?
But yeah, that was great. You know, the main notes that were sticking out as not blended were just your open Gs. So not much you can do about that unless, you know, your Gs are just tuned perfectly. But the rest of it was great, I thought.
Can I ask for one thing? That you all really pay attention to using the same bow speed, and that it's a slow bow speed with an airier sound, so there's not too much pressure, but a slow bow speed. And let's just see what that does to the group sound, so you can really get that Dolce color.
Here we go. Last one. One. And then the final variation, will you give us a bar number, please, somebody? 98. And same thing, which I thought was nice in what you just played, that in each variation, if you can really have in your ears the shape of the original theme, is what is
Yes,
giving the
absolutely,
inflection
yeah.
to it, even though it's okay. Together.
You know, when you play the theme itself, the way you can play that pickup, you have 3 30-second notes worth of time to play a beautiful E flat. When you're playing the 30-second notes, that the first E flat, if you can somehow capture the same feeling on that, and I think right now it sounds a bit like set your bow and you just, it has a bit of a bite to it that I think, imagine you're already sort of playing when you begin that pickup.
But with the left hand alive, so it's really, there's some warmth right away. For me, when the cello start doing the cello crossing, I think that you probably need a little bit more speed so that it's not as angular. Just try that.
Should we try Berlioz?
Michael, before
Please.
before you do that,
Yep.
I think that, you know, one of the things that I think is worth thinking about is the fact that it's one thing to play this as part of a 30 or 35 person group, but it's a very different experience to play it by yourself. And, you know, so how does that translate the way it feels when you're playing with lots of companions? You know, if you move the bow a certain way, it rings and so forth. And so I have to say, and this is a very incredibly unhelpful thing to say, I actually never put this on an audition list because I found that it was, agreeing with Cindy, I found that it was the excerpt that is going to split a committee in about 12 different ways, because nobody is ever going to like the way somebody played it, because there's so many different ways to play it, and every conductor that you play it with wants something completely different, and so then you get to this, it's like, well, so now how do I approach this? I found that a helpful thing to think about is how do each one of us feel about the character of this opening tune. And so I think that, you know, if you can kind of make a decision that you want it to have a certain dignity, a certain poise, a certain, you know, fluidness or fluidity, and then I think that it helps as far as how the rhythm is affected, you know, and also what kind of shape you give it. Because yes, it needs to have shape, but when you play it by yourself, you're going to have to use the bow very differently than you just did because otherwise, if we took one of them out of the group and said play it exactly that way, it would sound so anemic that it wouldn't work when you're playing it by yourself. So I think that, you know, that's worth thinking about, you know, when you play something in a setting of a section, and then when you're pulled out of the section and you have to play it on your own, then how does that shift? And I think that's a decision that we all have to make, and it's no different for the cello or you know, when you play 77 in Heldenleben, you know, by yourself, it's very different than playing it, you know, with a group. So I think it's just worth mentioning that you can play it a certain way this way in this setting, but it doesn't necessarily mean that when you're by yourself, you can do this. I think a lot of the things that were mentioned are things that need to be thought about, but I've always found that just concentrating on the character of it, you know, what does one think the character of this? I think it's very sort of noble sounding, you know, and I think it should, for the rhythm to have that quality of nobility, if you will, sort of a chin up kind of character. And then I think that it starts to become a little bit more comfortable. Otherwise, this excerpt is, you're just guessing and you feel like, well, you know, I could play this 100 different ways, you know.
Like a lot of excerpts at an audition, it can sound like, you don't see it anymore, but it used to be like in the Olympics when they had ice skating, they had two rounds. There was whatever they called it, the figure, you know, the academic figuring, where people would trace a figure eight and then somebody would come out there with a little calipers, whatever, and they'd measure how exactly on the figure, whatever. Guess what? They don't show that on television anymore because it was so boring. Yeah. Of course, it's the freestyle part of it that people want to see. And I think that if you can come in an audition, you can play something like this with a sense of poise and kind of comfort.
Yeah, that's what we're always looking for. We're looking for poise, comfort. We're looking for how you use your bow. We're looking for steady rhythm. We're looking for a sound that is, you know, not that is malleable, that will work with the section. So I think, you know, I think that I agree with you that, you know, maybe when you're in a section, you have to tone back what you would do in an audition. In an audition, you can still keep the same framework and just add a little bit more of your own personal bent on it. But I think you all play it great. And just having the shape, that's what we look for. That's what I look for. Intonation, rhythm, poise. That's what I look for.
Well, and that's the thing about music. There are so many ways we could, you know, endlessly talk about this. I mean, that fact that it's in A flat major, which for Beethoven is a very specific meaning of kind of key of reconciliation, and which you can hear in all of his piano sonatas and quartets and opera excerpts and so on. You know, the key has a particular. Remember what's happening in the pieces in C minor. The second movement is in A flat major, which is presented as a kind of refuge. and then we're reminded that it can't be the refuge by the brass playing in C major. So it's all these things contribute to everybody's larger experience and idea of it.
But don't be scared of it. That's the main thing. Don't be scared. You can all play it beautifully, and it's not going to, it'll be fine. Don't be scared. It's not that difficult. Just be rhythmic. Just be poised.
Starting to get scared.
No. The idea is to keep you away from that.
Okay, so let's try, we're going to Berlioz now.
They shouldn't be. It's not that.
And I guess we're going to start at figure 1. So Jubian, you're finishing up. Oh, you're finishing. Okay, whoever's playing. Go ahead. Confess something to you. When one conducts this, actually mostly what's happening, the conductor should be thinking about, is the English horn solo is ending and then getting organized, this and letting the violas have room under the guidance of their section leader to play it with a certain kind of warmth and character.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just for fun, would one of you be willing to lead this?
I can.
And I'll stay out of your way. Just see
Okay.
if we could do it with a couple of different people.
Could we go a little further back? Start a little further back? Because I think one of the things in this excerpt is to remember where you're coming from with the English horn solo harmonically, and then let that. I think that when the violas take over the tune, that it has this fresh feeling, compared to, it's a little more melancholy when the English horn is presenting it. And so...
okay, yeah, because it comes out of, it doesn't start being a solo, right? It comes into focus, kind of like in a film-like way.
Yeah, transition through particularly from the C sharp to the E.
Where would you
So
like
you
to
want me
start?
to actually
Yep.
sit?
Here, it's right here.
Oh, I would feel better sitting.
Okay, go sit down.
Now, don't get all self-conscious on us now.
But
Remember,
listen, you guys,
you don't follow
need
me,
to
I'm going
emerge.
to follow you.
You need to emerge right away. You don't want everyone to hear you finally when you get to the A string. Right now, it sounds very shy to me, and I feel like you're taking it over, and it's a new start.
Yeah, and if we're going to play it again, when we get to the rising part of the phrase, these quarter notes all felt like you're kind of, it
Dying on
wasn't
them.
really sustaining the phrase.
It's because they have a
across the
diminuendo
rest.
marked. Yeah, I would take that with a grain of salt, exactly. But can you be careful? Here, don't stay at the tip. No one wants to hear that. So it's dum ba da da, not dum da da ya, which happens often. So watch where you start that those pickup Bs, that you don't just start it where you landed. Pick up the bow, so you're all together.
Well, should we just play it once more again with,
Yeah.
with your guidance, and then we'll see if you want to play this other game with me.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to start a little bit before, James, a little bit before 1, if you don't mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars. Would that be okay? What a sport. Here we go. And.
When you guys get to the top of the phrase, you get to this triumphant E, right? The finish, I think, got better. But when you come back to the E, just the next bar, the whole character, I think, should shift a little bit more. Already, just restating the E in this new bar, I think it already has a little bit more of a melancholy sound to it compared to the triumph of the previous one. So to finish with nice ring into the air, and then maybe just, I don't know what would do it, but
Slower bow speed.
That's probably a slower bow speed, yeah. And in the run-up to it, you lost your nice blend a little bit just with this. Just on the A itself. Some of you are switching over to the A string right on the A. I think that stands out. Suddenly there's open A in the middle of the scale. So either just be careful in that moment so that the whole scale sounds like it's...
Or just don't use an open A. Just
Yeah.
nobody use an open A. And da, yum, da, da, da. I feel that there could be a little bit more placement of that, and be aware that the cellos are with you at that point, and so you really need to stay on top.
And you feel a little bit of collaboration. I think the conductor's sympathetic. The conductor will open his beat a little bit to allow the section leader and the sense of how people have their comfort zone about how they produce the sound to do what it does. But what Jonathan said, I think, is you don't have enough information in your part. That at the bar before 2 and the whole rest of the orchestra, there's a diminuendo. So probably, but if you use your ears, your spirit, this sequence, I think suggests it growing gentler and gentler. So, one last one? Nobody wants to lead.
Oh, and since we were started a little bit earlier, just the texture you guys are creating.
You want to lead?
Oh.
Just play it. Just play it with them.
Okay. I know.
Sorry to interrupt, but
Well, I think those 16th notes should be not quite as marcato sounding. Right now they're coming out a little,
stiff.
yeah. Okay, I guess I'll play. From whatever the same bar was. Was that 1, 2, 3, 4? What did you do, 5 before 1? 6 before 1? Okay.
We did, okay. So follow him. Very good. Bravo, Tom. This place we just got to, for the rest of you, this is a classic moment about which there's a lot of confusion. What you should do here, the orchestras have real tradition about this, you play those sextuplets in tempo. Dee-da-dee-da-dum, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum. then. That's the classic French style way of playing it. Good. Shall we go on to, what would we say was we were going to do next? Oh, yes, Brahms. Oh, yes, my favorite.
What drums are they doing?
Brahms Haydn variation.
I played drums and Interruptions first time this summer.
Really?
I've never played it before. Every time it's come up, I've gotten rotated off.
Oh my God. It's so much fun. I love that piece.
Oh, yeah.
Is it variation 7? Is that what it is?
5.
Oh, 5. Okay, okay.
Yep.
It's variation 5. Okay.
Well, I wouldn't play it that fast in an audition.
No. Would you consider having a little bit more moderate tempo?
Really? Oh my gosh. Okay, sure. Absolutely. It's your show.
It does not sound poised, and it's so difficult to get this with the woodwind section. And I find that when it's that tempo in an audition, it just sounds really hassled. And that's the last thing you want to sound in this is hassled. You know, it should be joyous. It should be poised is the word that keeps coming to mind. So you try it again with a little.
I think about it far more recklessly, but let's do what you want. So.
Yes.
You like? Okay.
There's so many string players on the stage, and you know, I don't know, 15 wind players, and to me this movement seems like it's almost more about the wind kind of sound than the string sort of sound, and I think it's, I wonder if they could just listen to the winds play the opening once and let that kind of influence the way they're playing with their bows.
Okay, so winds, I'll give you the opening bar. 1, 2, be out up, right?
You start the piece, but it's really just to set up the winds in the beginning, I think. So if you can find something that's like that quality but lighter. Yeah.
Can I add also that the danger bars are before H, letter H? Da 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 da. Everyone gets very involved in that, and it tends to bog you down. Da 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 da. Yeah, da 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 da. Not rushing after that, because people get a little. They start tumbling forward. Yeah, da 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 da. Very steady. Those are danger bars right there.
And that's not the only place in this particular piece we're playing, or in many other pieces, where at some crucial moment of phrasing, reorganization of phrasing, there will be some people who will feel that they want to kind of go ahead at that exact moment. So after the beginning, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth bar, where the strings have, that's another place that out of love of the music, enthusiasm, and desire to connect with the public, problems can occur.
Exactly. Make sure that you place bar 212 with, again, with some poise. Da 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 da, pa 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 pa. Just da 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 da. It's the tendency is to just fall into that bar, and if you can really keep yourself from doing that, I find with this, you know, it's so different than Mendelssohn Scherzo because the stroke is just a little bit broader, and you have time to actually make these subito dynamics, much more time than you think, and when it's all organized in that way, then it does actually sound brilliant. But it doesn't sound hassled and it's scurried and out of control.
You know, I find that for something like this, the way we use the bow should be actually very different than, as you mentioned, the Mendelssohn Scherzo. And I find that to address some of the issues that everyone is actually talking about, creating the possibility of creating a little bit more resistance in the stroke actually keeps you from falling forward. And I find that, you know, in approaching something like this, we have to be very conscientious, not only playing it in the orchestra, but especially in playing it for an audition. Where exactly in your bow does this work, and how much hair should you actually have on the string? Because I think that having a little bit more hair on the string will give you a little bit more resistance. Also, it creates a sound that's very different than you would for the Mendelssohn Scherzo, where you might want to be a little higher in the bow and with a little bit less hair. But I think that, you know, getting that from the very beginning in this kind of sets you, because it's the resistance that keeps you from falling forward, you know. So you know, the bow will do it for you if you kind of manage where in the bow you are and how flat or not the hair is.
And in terms of the way the teamwork of this all has to be, what you really do not want in this piece is a conductor who's going 1, 2, 1, 2. That's just impossible. That's right. The conductor should set it in motion. Then it's happening within the ensemble, and maybe the conductor would give a sort of confirming, as you see me say a lot, not controlling, but confirming 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the sixth bar, bada bada bum. Just, you know, that's where we are. But the rest of it can't be like this, or it's really not pleasant. Yeah. But anyway, the other thing you were, Roberto, saying, if I really correctly understand, it is something that I talk about sometimes, that the issue of playing very quietly, but also that there's enough excitement, there's enough kind of noise, attractive noise, because especially, as I can tell you, when you get older, it's harder to hear these noises. And if you're out, and you may have noticed that a lot of people in the audiences who are listening to us tend to be on the older rather than younger side. So I think really important to play these things so there's, that's even in the quiet music, there's the excitement in that.
There's body in the sound.
Right. And I think that comes from just having a little bit more contact with the string. You know, if it's just too much on the side of the bow, then I think it doesn't. And I think that even within the variation, you know, shifting the bow a little bit is totally okay. You know, obviously, when you go from bar, is that 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you go from the sixth bar in forte to the next bar, 212 in the pianissimo, you're not going to use the bow the same way. So I think that one of the things that you can do is sometimes make sure that you shift the bow so that you create a completely different sound. So it's not just about the same thing, louder and softer, but it's just a completely different texture in the sound also. And I think that can be very helpful.
Okay, I'm going to set you in motion now that I got it. Everyone happy with the tempo this is now?
Yeah.
It was good tempo.
I think it's a good tempo.
Good. B up, up. I'm sorry. I'm going to give you a whole bar. 1 and. Yeah. So when they go up to the upper octaves, like where the violas go into the into the treble clef, those 2 bars, right? Well, you know it. You know it by heart. So, what is the strategy there? Like.
You almost have to compensate for the fact. Well, at least right now the violin is also
In an audition,
showing you,
that's always oh my god.
Yeah, going across.
It comes out so loud right now. Well, what Roberto was talking about with the bow, when you're on the G string doing these, you're probably using fairly flat hair. But as you transition across, I would use much less hair, and possibly even a contact point that is a little further out than what you need on the lower strings. So as you go across the octaves,
Also,
Just make sure you're preparing your elbow.
yeah, that is exactly right.
that-
yeah, I think, yeah.
Yay!
No, it's true. If you drop your whole arm when you hit the top F sharp, it's going to come out a lot. So I think when you play the middle octave, if your elbow is a little bit on the low side already, that's good, because then you just straighten out your wrist and your bow is on the A string. Otherwise, it's really hard to drop your arm and not have it stick out. Yeah.
Elbow leads. Can I add one more thing? And this isn't so apparent in the orchestra, but when you play this on your own, you can keep the left hand alive on the little notes, like keep that. If you just hear without any vibrato, it sounds dead.
it's not Jaws.
But you know what I mean? Where else? Little ones, those little notes.
And I think even when you're just in accompaniment mode and staying on the same note, that it needs a little of that too.
It makes a big difference in an audition when you're by yourself playing this, that you keep your left hand alive. And it's true in Mendelssohn as well. People tend to just keep their left hand very still, and the whole thing sounds dead. So, and it should be live, it should have joy in it. And if there's nothing in the left hand there, I don't get the joy.
That's a great way also to make sure that this ba-da, 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 if the second note is a little too insignificant, then it is a very long wait for where the next note should come in, and we tend to start getting ahead, and we start playing on the beat pretty soon.
Yeah, you
So-
can't go.
Yeah.
No fair doing that.
So,
How about let's try letter G, which is just before. Can we do just maybe the
G.
strings of letter G?
Can I also suggest the da 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 da? That's really getting out of control. I hear da 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 da, like it's really rushing, and every first beat has an accent. So try not to do that. Keep a lot of poise in that section. That's after G, so you'll cover it.
So start at G.
Yeah.
Let's do just the strings for one moment. G. Just here's letter G. I'm just starting the downbeat. 1. Yeah. Just So, you know, like the bar where there's the pianissimo, lock your ensemble better together there. Okay, same place? One.
Somebody's already early here.
And the E flat, exactly.
Yeah.
Did I cover what you want? I can't remember what you were saying.
Good. 220, the D flat comes too soon. Da 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 da. I'm hearing that from more than one person. That is a audition pitfall right there. D flat in 220.
Yeah.
D flat and the B flat in the bottom line, but you'll be playing the top line. Just that second eighth note, make sure that doesn't
220
come
you're
too
saying.
soon. Yeah. So
Let's start with the winds, then we'll go on. There'll be a horn class like this eventually, guys. So thanks for your patience. G. G. Here he goes. 1 and. The winds start. Letter G. 1 and. Once more, Mike. You got it. Start. Upbeat to G. 1.
if you're very steady on that bar.
Good. Variation 7. How about this, and then we go on. Maybe we don't.
Sure.
Is that all right? Or do you want to do the last one? Anyway, but this is really a very major one.
Yeah.
Oh, give me a tempo you guys like.
About like that?
Yep.
Well, I lose the tie into the downbeat. Dum da da bum. So if you release it, then the line just stays very vertical. Also, keep that alive. Keep it rather steady. That's where it slows down, and then the tension is out. I mean, you want to keep this very alive, the whole thing. So left hand, and be careful that you bloom. You allow those the beats that go over the bar line to bloom and not die. That's my input. What do you think?
Yeah, I also think the this first phrase has ya da dum bum ba-da-dee, yum, ba-da-da. Then you get to this longer part of the phrase where it's a little more connected together, and it sounds a little dead through, specifically in here, leading up to the G, that bar with the dotted rhythm. It's not really connecting across into the final bar of the phrase. So partly it's just a question of singing through those B flats that are could be just sitting. Right now they sound like they're just kind of sitting there.
Right.
I think the grazioso character of it needs to be really considered. It doesn't feel quite that way, and he does put espressivo, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's grazioso for the variation, for the character of the variation, but it's also marked espressivo. I think it's easy to want to underplay this, and I think that it shouldn't feel like it's too delicate to touch, And I think if it has a sort of a very easy, almost dance character to it.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Because
Sicilian.
otherwise it gets very da da.
It's a Sicilian. It's got
Yeah,
to
yeah.
have a rocking, exactly,
Yeah.
dance. Yeah.
Also, another very typical Brahms thing, it's a 5-bar phrase, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yeah.
he liked those a lot. They're all over the place, as in yam, ba dum, bam, 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 da, 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 da. But so there's something about that idea of this follow through that goes to the 5th bar. Can we try that? I think where you get, forgive me for using these words, kind of boring, is yum, ba bam, dee, da da schlepping, as the sequence gets lower, lower.
Exactly.
Should get more alive as it gets slower.
So you're really dum, da, da, dum, just carrying through over the bar.
Yep. Be very gentle, fiddles here. Let's just do flute and viola. 1. Listen to her for a second. So this sound of the flute playing an octave above where part of the string, mostly it's happening in the violins a lot. It's a very specific sound that all these guys use. And the more it can be in a way that you think of the flute as leading and letting the delicacy of the sound be there, I think it can be more effective. 1. To see whatever our friends here think of. For me, it's still the first note is just too loud. It's too present.
Bow speed. So you have, there's bow speed in it. It's very light and up thinking. And be careful, dum. There's a breath that she takes, dum, bum, 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 bum. So don't beat her to that low A flat.
With this, you really want the audience to feel like it wants to come to you rather than you're going to them so much. 1. Great, and this da-da-deem, ba-da-dam, ba-da. Is that written?
That's just what I asked them to do, sort of. But not that much.
Let's try it, everybody. this last variation, let's do it right now.
Can I make a fingering suggestion? Because this is
Can I
something I
stop
hear
you?
a lot in
betcha.
auditions. This is really important. That's a really bad fingering. Get yourself up. So, you see what I mean? Because often I will hear, which is, as many of you know, is my least favorite thing. That is not anything. That's like getting yourself from A to B in a really bad way. So go up the C string there. Also, here, I hear that a lot too. You can get to the E flat, so you don't get that. Okay, and I'm watching some of you be really, really careful. That's a cleanliness thing that really shows in an audition. Okay, sorry. I don't need the eighth. If you guys, we could.
I don't know how many other things do we want to
Well,
get.
more than we can manage.
I don't think the eighth is.
not as important.
It's not as telling as the as
Very good.
5 and 7.
Bye-bye.
Do you guys play this?
So now, what was this next? Strauss? Strauss. We got some new instruments playing. Let's tune for a second. So this is figure 14, is that right? You know where I'm starting? I'm starting at figure 14. I thought we had a tuba around here someplace. No tuba back there, guys? I thought we had someone for this. Okay, sorry about that. This is 14. Yay! Yay, yay, yay. We're starting at 15. Oh, I see. I'm sorry, we don't have enough horns there. So, 15. And 1.
Okay, Stephanie. There's a hairpin, and you have to invite the clarinets in with you. You're going, and you're shying away from the down to up bow. So really go into da 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 ya dum ya da, so that they have a sound to come into. Also, the fact that you separate those makes it's hard for these guys to place their pits. So if you do those separate, make sure that you do it in a timely way, so that it's not rushed, so that everyone can understand your rhythm. I don't think you need to separate it myself. You can do that. You can separate anywhere in there, but I would not separate those notes because it makes it really hard for the orchestra to be with you. Also, finally, make sure that you have some poise in that retard. Da-dum, ba-dum, boom, ba-da-da, so that there's really like this, ha. And then, Don Quixote comes in and, stop that, But you have to have a little bit more poise in there. Good. Make sure your left hand is set, right? Ba-da-dum, that F sharp. Good.
I tend to, I think especially at this moment in the solo, you're kind of just introducing some of the music that you will elaborate on later on. And I think that one of the dangers in this is if you are a little too free here, it actually tends to disassemble it a little bit musically, at least for me. I think that the way I've sort of read this is that when at 15 you have the left half, that actually that tempo, it's useful if that tempo or that pulse stays until you have this retard before the first variation. And in the same, and I think that we tend to feel like this, the place that Cindy was talking to you about, the going to the A. I think that, it's marked espressivo, but it's not necessarily a different tempo. And so Sorry?
I'm just saying, I'm following you because that's makes it exciting. Once again, it's not interesting for the audience to see conductor doing like this.
I mean,
that's interesting.
I tend to have a philosophy, especially about playing viola solos in the orchestra, especially if you can manage to play it a certain way so that, especially in the first rehearsal, the conductor doesn't get the temptation to say, why don't you follow me here? You want them to follow. You want them to follow you. In the concert, you can do what, But I think that once you get this, then you make the retard from that. I think it's tempting for this to, and then the next time around, it's if you start to disassemble this tempo-wise too soon, I think then you're going to get yourself where every 2 or 3 bars you're going to really start playing a different tempo, and eventually you'll start getting encouraged to follow. The only other thing I would say is, if you could think when you started think all the way to there, so that it doesn't stop with It's almost impossible to get it together with the piccolo if there doesn't seem to be.
The conductor can potentially be helpful in that way.
If they must.
It is possible.
So I would just say, especially with that little crescendo that you have in the second bar there, you can use that to make sure that you play through this a little bit more. I would not start too low in the bow. I think a little bit more. I tend to like to play with more hair on the string. Yeah, but just.
Want to try again? Would you like to try again? Good. Remember also that Sancho Panza in the novel, he speaks in not parables, but he speaks in homilies, stupid things. What goes up must come down.
Exactly.
Da, da, da,
Yeah,
da, da,
yeah,
you know that, and
yeah.
that's the part is like that. It's just a series of very and
Simple.
Strauss, of course, most important. Strauss often said to many people, these parts should be spoken, not sung. That was his big advice. They're like acting parts. So you want to try it?
Michael,
yes.
I have a question for you. What do you make of this rhythm? The to me, it has always felt a little bit as the sort of undignified manner in which a donkey will kind of sort of walk along, especially with excessive weight on its back.
That's, I think, the main issue. It's somebody with a lot of, like pots and pans and these things that are all clanking and making.
And so I think that it's okay to highlight sort of the oddity in the rhythm, because it's not the kind of rhythm you would see a lot.
Yes? Coming up to break, folks. Here we go. 14. And. And the other solo, is somebody who's doing that? Let's do that, and then we'll have our break.
Does it start at 26 or
It's at after 29.
after 29? Okay.
And which one are we starting after 29? Is it just the second measure? Just right on the
Well, we could start. How about? Oh, geez. Violas, are you game for starting after 29? 1, 2, 3, fourth bar. Fourth bar after 29. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, and 1.
bum, that's it.
Okay, just go with
You have to go with that.
That's why letting it kind of disintegrate too much rhythm-wise, it can be.
That comma is very misleading.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I'll just ignore that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts on the downbeat. Dum bum
You
bum.
just
bum,
finish it.
bum,
Like, oh, why are you bothering me? Okay, same place. Way to go, violas. Here we go. 3, 4, 1. Could we start, please, right at 30? 30? 30? Mm-hmm.
Bravo. Great. When you played the ya-da-da-da-da-da a few minutes ago, it was quite different. No, I mean, sorry, the way she played it. But this time when it's fortissimo,
Yep.
I think, I mean, it's loud, but I'm just wondering what you think the character of it is this time.
It's a lot colder to me this time.
I
I don't know if I conveyed that.
I've always thought of it as also kind of getting like frustrated or something, like a little more like,
Yeah, because you keep getting interrupted.
yeah,
You know?
That's why the second fortissimo is there, I think.
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's just really emphatic, like I'm trying to get through to you, man. And also to make that sense of interruption a little bit more clear, I think when you play the F, the low F, I would really hold that one a little longer so that there's more of a sense that it's
Yeah.
interrupting you. And then come in with a bit, what used to be so lyrical and beautiful is now like that. And I think when you get into this section after 30, that well, in general, with this whole solo, you're maybe one character, but the character within that keeps switching around, right? And maybe that could be a little clearer, like after 30 and it's very sweet, and then is
Yeah.
a little bit back to being frustrated.
To that end, if that last note, which has a dot on it, is too long, you do the second one with a harmonic, which has a sense of release to it. So you have dum ba 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 bum ba 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 dum bum. Da 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 dum. Bum ba 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 da bum. Dum, do, do, do. You know, it's like Michael was saying, it's a simple thing. Dun 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 dun. You know, that thing. It's such a simple, like, listen to me, I'm important too. You know, kind of heaviness to it. He's big, he's a fat guy, he's like, you know, lumbers along, and you have to have that. It's kind of like Falstaff. I always think of Falstaff, you know, when he, in that opera, you know, when he sings about, I used to be, you know, I was light on my feet, and I, you know, he talks about how he used to attract the ladies. I mean, he's competing with Donne Quixote. So I feel like this is your moment to really embody so much of that character. And it comes through with how you use your bow strokes, as I just said, like at 30. Also, it gets very loud. So you do some really lovely fingerings, and I think in audition, they're great. In a performance situation, that F is really gonna, I'm sorry, I'm talking about 33, the 2 bars before 33. I would, at that point, I would just be on the A string in context. I mean, you can do whatever you want in an audition, but it's lovely, it sounds beautiful. Just,
Good. Should we take a break? We're going to take a break. Thank you so much.
Yes, I mean, yeah, no, I'm very totally. Yeah, it's a very similar. But yeah, you just have to. Well, first of all, learning the piece. Tremolo is such a it takes a so you spend a lot of time building up to that.
Oh, it's actually. I think it's 2 people.
Not really. I was just so like focused on that. It wasn't too bad. But yeah, I was worried about
It's
it.
Dan and
Lightning around me. But when I got up there, it was doing it in functions. But they had a selective mic like this on that was just sending how loudly I was playing to the computer.
So the light was it already pre-set?
No, it's not. I mean, the algorithm. Yeah, I mean the color scheme. I don't think so. No, I think. I mean, I
My debut. I with it, but also I was like,
I can do like. Just gotta be some applications. My hand straight.
so we're gonna come back to.
What are you playing?
So. Just for a second. So yeah, but Ashley hasn't had a chance to do it yet. And then we'll go to Menacing and Shostakovich, and then you'll play.
Maybe inside.
That's yours. Nice.
Did you study
I had Teresa.
move on to Menacing Scherzo. And then we'll do Shasta 5. And then we'll go on to the Adam Giselle ballet. And then we'll see if we have time.
Okay, Ashley, we have one more Don Quixote. And we're starting the same place we did, right? After 29. 1, 2, 3, 4 bars after 29. This reminds me, I saw years ago the Berlin Philharmonic with Von Karajan conducting, and they were on an American tour, and they had a rehearsal in Carnegie Hall of Ein Heldenleben, and they had 3 different concertmasters playing in the course of the tour. And he just went through like with all 3 of them. He said, you know, okay, okay, fine, now you. Okay, now you. You know, that was kind of it. So this is not quite as bad as that. All right, this is after 29. 1, 2, 3, 4 bars. And 1.
Quick thoughts?
Actually, it's a little delicate. It's beautiful, but it's a little delicate. You have to put yourself in that time, you know, that frame of mind, as we were talking about before, heavier. And some of the fingerings that you use, you go up the D string a lot, and they're not going to be, they're not going to come forward as a solid character, especially the. That's, for me, that's like the statement, what comes up must come down, dum bum 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 bum. You know, if you're going up on the D string for that, it's a little delicate. And then, Also, you went up on the D string for that too, right? I think that you need more weight. You need to put more weight into it. And then also a little bit more time, here. Give yourself some time. When you go up to that, if you go right away into the next character, you can't enjoy this. So you have to think about what's going on around you and include everybody in your story. And if you rush them, then they can't make their contribution. Well, that's my feedback. Does anyone else want to?
Yeah, I would agree completely. I think that, a lot of times we have to think about the fact that these solos will be played in a space that's many times much bigger than even this hall, and I mean, look how close actually the back wall is here, and many halls is twice or more. And so I think that, how we shape things is very important. And I think that the more time, doing the articulations that are marked, obviously, but the more time we can spend on the string, it's, for me, always time off the string, it gets a little nerve-wracking, yeah? And so I think that if you can feel, as Cindy says, so you can kind of sink into the instrument a little bit more. I think here, because of the fact that the section plays I think you can really kind of take over there on the one by yourself, And then I know it probably feels overdone here, but if you get into a 3,000 seat hall, which is what can happen sometimes, then I think it's just the character of it. And then, if those are too short, I think they're not gonna speak. I would ask you to just pay attention to the rhythm a little bit. And you notice that the fourth note is actually slurred. I cheat a little bit on the bowing just to make it so that actually the little note comes out. Like you invite them to dance with you a little bit. Yeah, so. And then I think you don't need to change the tempo as much, but you can change the characters a lot. Keep the bow on the string. It slows down the heart rate.
One thing, and I know this is all here. Finding that G. Make sure that you have your hand away, that you prepare it. If you try and get that G on the first finger from a second finger, which you all are on, if you don't have your hand ready for it, you're going to fall short. That's always a scary moment. So just make sure your hand is lifted up and you won't miss it.
And you have time. I think that there is more time to play. I mean, I tend to, like I said, keep the bow on the string and keep my hands on the. connect more. I think it doesn't sound overly done out there.
What Roberto's been saying, I haven't said this in a long time, but I used to say it a lot and think about it, that a lot of classical music for the audience is like an announcement made in an airport. It's kind of like you say, passengers on flight 37, immediately, please. That's really the big part of what we're dealing with. It's like keeping every part of it, arresting and interesting and focused. Let's play the Mendelssohn Scherzo. Did we tune or something like that? It happened. Good. I missed it. Oh, now I better consulting the tempo squad.
84.
Okay.
84. Actually, I think 84 is a nice tempo. But
And what might that be?
I mean, it's probably like.
Don't forget to vibrate on the little notes.
That's actually hard, I think.
I think I vibrated.
That's not one of those kind of just in the cracks between. That I get accused of picking sometimes.
We have a question. Do you play the double stops in an audition?
You can if you want to, but you don't need to at all.
Yeah, okay.
Some people like to do it because it helps them feel a little grounded, so you can, but you do not need to. You can play just the top line if you want.
You don't get extra credit.
Okay, that's good.
I don't know. I don't have an excerpt marked in that.
Oh, bar 17.
Oh, it's there.
It's before A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 before A is where the excerpt starts.
Okay. Sorry, Wins. Oh, let them play it once, for heaven's sakes.
Oh, absolutely.
God. 1, 1.
It's very different when you play it with the orchestra and then when you play it by yourself, right? So my comment about having a live left hand is obviously much more evident when you're by yourself playing it. I would suggest one thing, though, again, a fingering. Make sure that you are all on C string and that you're not trying to cross strings there. Same thing, there's another one like that too. That one. So if you get yourself you just have to be able to shift down to first position from third. But if you can eliminate the string crossings, you won't get behind and you'll stay in tempo. Anyone else?
Can we try that a little faster?
Great. If you can, when you do this in an audition, if you can really imagine yourself in the orchestra, this is so much fun to play. It is so much fun. If you can think uppermost in your mind, joy. This is joy. This is not scary. This is really fun.
It's G minor, but it's joy.
Yeah. Also, that one, there was a crescendo, but sorry, I'm not. But no one wants to hear that so much because the violin's dum ba da 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 dum ba da da. So while you keep it with body, you don't keep crescendoing through that because that is not interesting, right? So just keep the voicing in mind always when you do it in the audition situation.
There's a crescendo though that I think should come out a bit more, which is where it's that first T viola thing.
Yeah.
When you go over to the C string and it goes back to minor, I think it needs to be maybe a little bit of a higher stroke or something. It just doesn't sound like a crescendo.
Yeah, it's true. I lost you guys there too. After B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I lost you. That's another good reason to stay on the C string and not cross strings there. And that also is a good time in an audition situation to really laser beam focus. Like you are not going to screw up these bars. These are going to be great because a lot of people fall on their face right in those 3 bars. So put your focus right into that. And I think staying on one string really helps that.
Good.
Okay. It's not important.
I want to move along a little more because I'd like to also let our colleagues maybe go a little bit earlier, considering how hard they've been working. So, can we have the Giselle solo, and then we're going to do the Shostakovich.
Do you have your own part for it?
She does.
Do you want this one? Yeah.
You need you play it from the stand. Giselle, Shostakovich, and then maybe Mahler. So if you're not in any of those things, thank you very much. Yeah?
Giselle. We're doing Giselle and Shostakovich.
Do you all know what this is? Ballet by Adolphe Adam, very, very essential, the essential early romantic ballet. Tchaikovsky said he never wrote anything for dance without looking at the complete score of this piece. So it was really formative. This takes place in the second act, and it is a pas de deux between the departed, the spirit of Giselle, the innocent maiden from the village, who has died of love for her traitorous, aristocratic seducer. And now, graveside, they are reunited in this romantic scene. That a little bit faster. I don't think the dancers are going to be. They usually want things slower, but I don't think they're going to want it that slow. And then on the other side of the andante, we'll come back. Let's just finish the next part of it. This is 48. And.
Excellent, beautifully, beautifully done. Very, very beautiful.
I think the thing about this solo is so interesting because it's right in the center of what we think of as the range of the viola.
Yeah, yeah.
And to present it in a huge theater, as again saying, as the commanding voice.
From a pit.
From a pit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So again, not to be too delicate, when you have yon, dun, 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 you're against, you know, a voice that's going to be carrying out. So I would not retreat from that. I would, it didn't seem like you're always listening to the tune. You have to be very flexible with those without being rhythm police, you know. But you have to sound enough that they can hear you, you know, and rely on you for some rhythm. Also, da 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 dum, ya da 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 dum, da 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 da, the flute takes it from you. So if you do the second one up the G string, which is what, don't be too delicate on it, because the line keeps going and it gets higher. So getting an echo, playing on up in a higher position, maybe to keep the body in the sound.
Let's do the first few bars. You can lead way more sound-wise. You know, really, the crescendo should continue all the way to where it goes back down to the low E flat, right?
I think it could be helpful there in the opening too that maybe just not start too big so that you have lots of room to grow when you kind of move into the correct key, you know? And I'm also just wondering, it sounds like you were thinking of this whole thing as a slower tempo, right? So maybe in this faster tempo you don't need to take the separate bows. I think you could keep this all more legato. I forget how it's written, but I think it's all legato, right?
For try. Ba-da-da-dee, ba-da-da-dee, kind of like that. And that's really lovely opening, by the way. That in the little notes, find a way to put the more sound through the little notes, and although they look like little spider tracks, whatever, find a way that inside of the beat they can be a little bit more relaxed.
And I think it'll be helpful to think that, you know, they're playing eighth notes with you, right? But not on the downbeat itself. And that little opening, I mean, they play a pizzicato, but I think you have a little bit more time over the bar lines. And in the dance itself, it's kind of like a suspended lift thing going on.
Very often the fourth beats are slower.
Yeah.
Yeah, just make sure you don't lose your body now that you start the actual tune. This is when she starts to dance. Like this is and it's very slow. You've seen it, I know. So just make sure that, you gave the opening, which is great. Make sure that you hear da 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 in the harp. So dum da 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 dum da 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 dum da da. This is, think of yourself as singing an aria. And don't retreat.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The sixth bar. You can put them a little bit later. Dee-da-dum, body, you know, they can be different, in fact, every time. That's the license you get in doing this.
Can we talk about the turn for a minute still? Because still it sounds out of character right now. And I think you have this nice, luscious sound going. What I don't hear is that the B flat is decoration to the A flat. It sounds just like a burst of notes right now.
And the same thing when you shift, exactly. It sounds like you're a little unsettled when you make your shifts and you're going too quickly and you're not being totally accurate with them. It was where you go up. Take your time with getting your left hand up there. Okay, that's the hard thing to do when you're nervous. Everything just gets, you tighten up. And this is where you want to be very expansive, feel yourself breathe from your belly, and take your time.
So that last little note, it's in the style, it can be almost anywhere. later, sooner, you know, whatever. What's more? What's more? No, it's very, very special thing to sort of feel where exactly the elasticity is.
Yeah.
We don't live in a century like this anymore, like when this was written.
Can I suggest that the accompaniment, that you're in a more flexible part of the bow. Some of you are, and it's stiff, and you can't be rhythm police, so just keep your bows where it's flexible. That's nice. Nice.
Once more, once more. It's a little too bumpy now. Good. And you know, we don't, it's not so much in the music we play, but in the Bel Canto repertoire, something, the kind of thing that the singers in that repertoire do. For years, they sing these Italian simple songs, famous celebrated songs of things like this, and they sing it mezzo voce, and they sing it hundreds, thousands of times in order to sort of get this thing that it seems authentic, I guess is the word. That it just seems like nobody ever wrote this. It's just me right now. Okay, we're going to do Shostakovich, and then we're going to stop. Yes. Thank you, everybody. So like, ya, da, da, dee, da, da, dee. You know what Barbara said? I think it's figure 15, is that right? Figure 15. Yeah, so it's just a little bit, ya. But it actually sounds like an old viola joke. No, actually.
Go, tell it, come on. Come on.
Sorry, I'm sorry. And but while we're doing that,
It was a little slow.
Yeah.
I was, go ahead.
Go.
I just was struck that it looked like most of you were starting this at the tip.
Exactly, that's what I was going to
And
say.
you set yourself up for trouble if you started quite so high in the bow. I would start, maybe in the middle or something, just so that the bow distribution works out a little more naturally later. And especially, I know you're all a little afraid, but this B had that kind of a sound to it after the F sharp. So still some core.
Sorry. That's better.
A very sparse amount of bow because it's scary. It's really scary. But strength in numbers. Just pretend right now that you're playing it. Well, you are playing it as a group. You're not by yourself. And use bow speed. You know, the sound. So I'm not developing my vibrato so much. It's more of an eerie, airy kind of sound. It's menacing. You know, so you don't want it to be too pretty, but you do want it to be united so you all have the same color. So I would encourage you right now to do it again and just use more bow. But not on the uppos. Be careful with the uppos. You don't want, you're going to, but use speed, but not weight. Use slow bow speed rather, but not too much weight on those uppos.
And the eighth notes also should be vibrated, shouldn't they? I hear a lot of
yeah, the eighth notes. I want to commend you. I'm not hearing any of that, which is great, which is really great.
There is a different quality, though, to the separation when you're coming from. When you finish on an up bow, there's more of a lift than. Is a little bit like that. It's slight, but just try to finish your up bows with the same sort of feathery quality that you get at the end of the down bows.
Yeah.
Right, because the more graceful this could end, the more it's shocking when the piano and whatever pick it up. Okay?
One more thing.
Yep,
The more
sure,
bow speed that you use, the freer your left hand will be to be accurate on those big shifts. Okay?
I think this would be an excellent expert, a very good place to try what Kim was talking about the other day with, what does she call it? Like
Over the
bow thing,
Yeah.
you know?
Everybody, release your neck.
Because I think it's very easy, especially playing this alone, for it to get very sectionalized. And I think that connection that she was talking about, you know, when you're finishing, and also to think of using that technique that she was describing to make it so that these long notes, when you don't have the benefit of the rhythm, you know, that it doesn't seem like you're just kind of waiting for the next note to sort of materialize. I think if the long note has a life, then, you know, it's clear where the next note, and that, I think that just helps with the rhythm, it helps with the phrasing, it helps with the shape of the whole thing. So I think it would be an interesting place to try that technique that she described.
Here you go. Remember, though, that this see a lot of people who, and hear people who are not vibrating the eighth notes. That really breaks the mood.
The opening for things you do are, like she said, very eerie and stuff, but then suddenly after here it's suddenly like normal singing a little bit, you know, it's not so strange. And so it has to be done with a little more Dolce feeling. And it can often sound a little just, that the eighth notes are suddenly flowing more quickly than what you've done previously. So if you give them a little more love here, it helps stabilize just the flow through the eighth notes, I think.
Thank you, cellos and basses. If anybody wants to play Mahler 10, we can. Otherwise, we can just stop. Yes? No? What do you think, violas?
Yes, you want to
Be
play,
nice
or
to
you want
hear
to
it.
stop? You want to play? You want to play?
Okay.
Pass or play?
You're not.
Bye-bye.
Do you remember how this is? Oh. Here. Well, do you remember? Do you remember how this was originally written?
Oh yeah. It's horrible. No, that's how it is here. I remember. No, you showed this to me before. That
Yeah.
it was like the spelling was really horrendous.
Yeah, Mahler. I don't know if you've any of you seen, but this was the way it was originally written. Can you sort of see what the spelling is like of the notes?
Oh, yeah, right, not A natural, it's a G double sharp.
And the reason he did this, because Mahler said that his mind had already, in all these keys, no matter how bizarre, E flat minor, after whatever, that he felt that his mind already had too many facile combinations that it could just make. And he wanted to deliberately try to force himself to think in an unconventional way. So by putting it into, what is it, D sharp minor or some whatever, like, you know, that nobody naturally thinks. All right, should we give it a try?
I think the basic sound you have going is really good, and just to keep it there. So when it comes to suddenly you've been playing some super long bow and then you have separate quarter notes or something, that it doesn't really change the sound. It sounded a bit. I think I'm thinking especially. Something like that, right? That you don't allow yourself to just be free with the bow in a way that's different from what you're doing before.
Yeah, same with. I heard everyone crescendo, and then that was approached with a lot of caution because a lot of you are shifting at that point. So just make sure that there's no bumps in the road here. The thing about this is it's got to be so incredibly still. Is it helpful to think about it in a big 2 or not?
Well, because it could depends. It could.
Yeah, I mean, I find it helpful. Don't.
Well,
Ba-dum-bum. Oh, I'm sorry, in a big 4 instead of da. If you can really. Yeah, yeah. So not subdividing. Yeah.
And it's slow enough and so chromatic that the little notes are not just kind of passing things, you know? And I think you have time to sing through them a little bit more. I'm talking about the 16th notes, so like. I was watching, and it looks like whatever vibrato you were carrying in the long notes didn't always go through those little notes. And then they sort of stood out.
Yeah, seamless. That's the word I think about with this.
And I know from playing it, or we all know this, that when you get onto a long note, it can feel like you're just sort of waiting, or you're like, when is the note going to change? And then it kind of sounds that way. It sounds like the sound is sitting there. I think I heard that especially in a place like. So especially like, say, the quarter note before the note changes, try to feel like something is developing. Otherwise, it's just like, oh, it just changed pitch, and where did that come from?
It's pretty much what you guys are all doing, right, to 2. So be very careful. I'm getting that kind of thing where, I hope I make it. This is, it's 5th position on 2nd finger. So again, just make sure that you're ready for it and that you get yourself up there with your hand is being ready. And don't lift up your bow. That's what you don't want to be doing. Then the line is destroyed.
Same as the Shostakovich.
Yeah, yeah.
and let's do upbeat to 105. So we say we've done that.
Both
Yep.
of them.
Because this is the one that mostly in auditions people play much too loud.
Big 12, right.
It just gets, you know,
Okay, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, after 12.
I think that's the other one they have.
Big 12, that's the main,
Yeah,
that's the one.
yeah, that's it. So this is 12, 2, 3, 4. I wouldn't die on that because yeah, that comes out. Then all of a sudden that just really sticks out. You can answer this, Michael. It looks like a subito forte, but to my mind, sorry. You want the connection between the low A and the high note, so it doesn't. The tension isn't lost.
So in Arkwright, it has it all as piano.
Oh, yeah, that's another.
There
And
is
then forte.
no forte on the high D in Mahler's own
So the whole thing
writing.
is piano. But
The
the
whole thing is
tension's
blank.
still, you know, it's going to stick out anyway. I mean, I don't know.
Well, it needs to flow out of that, doesn't it?
There has to be a connection between the low A and the high D, though. There has to be somewhat of a smoother connection, I think.
What do you guys prefer to hear in auditions? Because I'm used to like crescendoing a lot right there. But is that like, would that be a big no?
No, not at all. That's what I'm asking. I felt that, da, da, and then that just like popped out. And then the other thing, be careful, because as a whole section, if you do that, it's really,
Yeah,
it's really hard
slurpy.
to avoid that. Just as clean as you can get it. So I would say more bow and pick your left hand up.
I had some other trick fingering there that avoided that, but now I don't remember it. No, this probably wasn't it. I don't know.
You could.
I do have one fingering just that, the opening, what do you guys generally do? This double string crossing thing, it's really hard to get it to sound smooth. So another possibility you could try is to me this also has the benefit that for the B flat you're on the C string, so it presents a different color from the A flat, A natural than B flat. So it's kind of reachy around, but this is nice to be able to do. So something to try.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're here from the D.
Oh, from after that? I think I just do. It's not great. Whatever. So yeah, it involves a lot. It's more shifting, but.
But if you do stay in second position and go across, just make sure your elbow gets over so that that string crossing doesn't have a hitch to it.
And you all treated the rhythm of the grace notes at the end pretty differently. I think the sforzando is really bum, 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 bum on the 16th note, and that the grace note is before that. So it is
That's
a little
yeah.
mixed sounding.
Suggestion of a slight break in the voice.
Yeah.
And just be careful with the intonation there. That's on those. That's a big pitfall there too.
I think of this phrase without crescendo, but from the high D, slightly directional, sort of falling forward a little bit to get itself to, I don't know if you have this notation, to the G double sharp.
No.
Maybe you have it written some other way. It gets you to that, and then there's a diminuendo.
Yes.
Because it's the same note, isn't it? I mean, it was spelled, of course. This note and this note.
Yep.
106. The big note in 106, and then whatever it is when you see what I'm saying? It comes back to the same note.
And he also then, because he spells it as a G double sharp, and then you get, where's that now? G sharp, G natural, so it's that 3 steps.
And then
Obvious.
then an F natural.
Yeah. No, it's the G flat. G double flat.
Thank you so much, beautiful men. Well, I'll just have to leave you to it, But
Yeah, we're good, right? We're good.
this is just
Awesome, you guys.
amazing
Thank you, guys.
insights. Thank you.
I'm sure. No, I know.